Aloha everybody, and welcome to the final edition of the Kilauea Eruption and Leilani Estates update for December 5th, 2018. Yes, you heard me correctly. This is the final edition of the Kilauea Eruption report, simply because today, December 5th, marks a very significant point in the eruption event. So real quick, what makes today so special is that according to the Smithsonian Institute's Global Volcanism Program, volcanoes that have no eruptive activity over a 3-month period are usually considered, are no longer classified as having a continuing eruption. And since September 4th was the last time active lava was observed, and today being December 5th, which marks 3 months, with no eruptive activity, then technically, according to the criteria, this event is labeled over. But just this event doesn't mean the volcano is not going to erupt or in the future or whatever. It just means that this particular eruptive event is officially classified as over. Though I will elaborate more on that later in the report because it's actually included in the USGS report. So, with no further ado, so to speak, let's go ahead and get to the USGS report and see what's going on, if anything. The USGS reports for Tuesday, December 4th, 2018 at 4:01 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Kilauea Volcano, current volcano alert level is advisory, current aviation color code is yellow. Activity summary is as follows. Kilauea Volcano is not erupting. Rates of seismicity, deformation, and gas release have not changed significantly over the past week. Deformation signals are consistent with refilling of the middle East Rift Zone. Observations, HVO monitoring during the past week shows low rates of seismicity at the summit and East Rift Zone. Earthquakes continue to occur primarily at Kilauea Summit and South Flank areas. In the East Rift Zone, tilt meters reveal little change over the last week, with GPS indicating some inflation downrift from Pu'uo'o. At the summit, tilt meters recorded a small DI deflation-inflation sequence over the weekend. The current trend is minor deflation. Sulfur dioxide emission rates have been below detection limits in the lower East Rift Zone since early September, though minor amounts of volcanic gas are still present. Last week, sulfur dioxide emission rates measured, give or take 35 tons per day at the summit, as well as give or take 35 tons per day in the East Rift Zone. These most recent measurements are consistent with the extremely low emissions from Kilauea over the past few months. September 4th was the last time active lava was observed along the lower East Rift Zone. Today, December 5th, will mark 3 months with no eruptive activity at the surface. According to the Smithsonian Institute's Global Volcanism Program, volcanoes with no eruptive activity over a 3-month period are no longer classified as having a continuing eruption. Based on this Global Volcanism Program criterion, the lower East Rift Zone eruption could be considered to be over. However, there is one known example, Mauna Ulu, 1969 to 1974, in which Kilauea's Rift Zone actively resumed after more than 3 months had passed. Although this phase of Kilauea's activity has now reached its 3-month threshold, it is important to note that it is still an active volcano that could erupt in the near future, and associated hazards have not changed. Magma is being supplied to Kilauea, and geophysical datasets continue to show evidence for movement of material through the magma system, including the refilling of the East Rift Zone. Hazards are still present in the lower East Rift Zone eruption area and at the Kilauea summit. Residents and visitors near recently active fissures and lava flows should stay informed, heed Hawaii County Civil Defense and National Park warnings, and be prepared, if necessary, to self-evacuate in the unlikely event of renewed activity. Please note that Hawaii County maintains a closure of the entire flow field and the vents and prohibits access to the area unless authorized through civil defense. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory continues to closely monitor Kilauea's seismicity, deformation, and gas emissions for any sign of reactivation, and maintains visual surveillance of the summit and the East Rift Zone. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory will continue to issue a weekly update every Tuesday and additional messages as warranted by changing activity. And that'll do it for the USGS report. Normally at this part of the program I would go into the earthquake maps to see what the activity has been over the last 7 days. However, I'm going to forego that since I would rather talk about a few things in the report that were mentioned that I believe are significant. The first thing I would like to address is in the USGS report observation section. It is noted that there has been little tilt meters that revealed little change over the last week, with the GPS indicators showing that there has been some inflation downrift of Pu'u'o. So that's basically between Pu'u'o and Leilani area that there's been a little bit of inflation, and up at the summit the tilt meters are recording a small deflation inflation sequence over the weekend. However, the current trend is minor deflation. So basically the summit is deflating while the downrift of Pu'u'o is inflating. So that does definitely show that there is magma movement from one part of the system to the next. Does this indicate that there's a pending eruption? Not necessarily. This is really just from what I've seen in past records and the way I kind of understand, it's almost like the volcano is breathing. There's always movement, things shifting around based on all kinds of different factors, both above ground and below ground, earthquakes, volume of injection into the system from the source, etc. So yeah, that's not unexpected and out of the norm. However, anytime we see inflation, that does mean that there is a buildup of pressure, which could ultimately find the weakest point and make its way out. So is that about to happen something? No, I wouldn't say so. I really do believe that the reservoir system was significantly depleted of magma. I mean, we see where it all went, obviously. So I do believe, in my opinion, again, I'm not a professional or anything like that, this is just my opinion based on my own personal observations. So it is my opinion that I don't think we will see any eruptive activity for quite some time. The system needs to recharge. I mean, it's like the battery, on your cell phone. When it's at 10%, you have to plug it in and wait a while for it to charge back up, and etc. So yeah, so I think that's kind of what we're looking at here, is that we need, the system has to basically refill and get to a critical point again. Now the question is how long will that take? It could take months, it could take years, it could take decades. We have to remember the last major eruption in the lower East Rift Zone was the 1955 eruption and the 1960 follow-up eruption. And it's been 60, 50 to 60 years, whatever it is, since we've seen anything like this in the lower East Rift Zone. So I would say that could be a good measuring stick to say that it could be somewhere in between now and then that we could expect something like this to happen again. Of course, as when it comes to natural events like this, predicting them is, almost impossible to a certain degree. We can get some warning signs and heads up, and that's all great. But so, anyways, I just wanted to talk about that for a moment. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is this official end to the eruptive activity. So, as was stated in the report and also in the beginning, that the Smithsonian Institute's Global Volcanism Program basically says that with volcanoes that have no eruptive activity over a 3-month period are no longer classified as having a continuing eruption. So that basically is event driven right there. So Kilauea is an eruptive volcano. It is an active volcano. It has been for a very long time, and it will be probably for a very long time to come. However, it goes through different eruptive events, or phases, etc., whatever terminology you want to use. The lower eastern zone, fissure 8, and the whole fissure line, that is a eruptive event, and that event, based on the Smithsonian Institute's Global Volcanism Program criteria, says that at the 3-month mark, the event can be classified as over. So, it doesn't mean the eruption activity of Kilauea volcano is over. It means that this particular event is over. Now, if something else was to start up, it would be discussed, I guess, amongst the USGS personnel and whoever else would be involved as to whether it was a continuing of the current event or if it would be a new event, because there is a known example, an exception, which was Mauna Ula, that in 1969 to 1974, it resumed activity after more than 3 months had passed. So I'm not real sure if they consider that a continuous event. I mean, it's dated to 1969 to 1974, which is a 5-year period. So I think I could logically assume that even though the event had paused for more than 3 months and then reoccurred, that it got grouped back into being the same event. So is that type of possibility possible with the lower eastern zone? Absolutely. Now, what I would have the question for the USGS or HVO in this particular case would be, what is the time period between 3 months and whatever before you would actually say, no, that's a new event and not a continuation? That's a question I'm kind of interested in. So if actually anybody out there, has been following this and did a little bit of research or whatever, and you happen to know that answer, put it down in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, that's pretty much it on the volcano thing. For Leilani part of the update, as a lot of you probably already know, the security checkpoint at Leilani Avenue and Highway 130 is going to be removed at midnight tonight, so 11:59 and 59 seconds p.m. for December 5th will be the last moments of the checkpoint. At midnight, it is considered, or it would be considered officially dissolved, and the road opened back up to general traffic. However, the county has posted signs basically saying that the road is only for residential or excuse me, only for resident, access, basically. Will these signs that's been posted with no parking all up and down Leilani detour tourists? Of course, here everybody in Leilani suspects the answer to that question is no. And the reason why is because even with the checkpoint in place, there seems to still be tourists and tours taking place in Leilani, allegedly. I have no actual proof that any of that has happened. There's been a lot of, what's considered eyewitness events, photographs, things like that. Personally, do I believe that it is occurring? Yes. Can I make that claim? No. It's not my place to do so, I guess, in that respect. So anyways, yeah, so the next few days here in Leilani is going to be very interesting to watch and see what happens. And probably a very interesting video will be coming from Scott very soon. It may be available before this one, actually, or it may follow just after. But I'll let him, share that with you. I don't want to tell you what he's doing. Anyways, I think that pretty much covers everything for now. Oh, I want to talk about this being the final edition real quick. Basically what this means is that the Kilauea Eruption and Leilani States Update series is basically, I'm discontinuing it. This is the final edition of that series. However, I will still be covering the volcano. However, the format's going to completely change, and it'll be a new video series that I'll be producing for y'all. And it's basically, I'm not sure exactly what the name is going to be, but it will be something on the lines of Hawaii Volcano Watch and News Update Report. And what it basically is going to cover is we're going to keep an eye on Kilauea, of course. We're also going to start looking at Mauna Loa, because Mauna Loa is still an active volcano, even though it is currently considered to be asleep and that there is no significant activity up there other than the earthquake activity we see. But it can reawaken and erupt, at any time as well. And so we're going to be watching that one as well. I will also be monitoring local news events to see if there's anything interesting to report there. I know some people really don't want to hear about the bad events that may be happening here, things of that nature. But if it's newsworthy and worth mentioning and related to the Hawaiian island, I think that maybe it would be appropriate. But I'm not going to focus just on the negative news stories. I'm also going to be looking for a lot of the positive news stories, mostly looking at the recovery efforts and things of that nature that it's happening, because I do want to keep the news events relative to the volcano in this particular series. Okay, everybody, that pretty much does it for this report. I really appreciate you tuning in, and as always, you know what to do. Hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and if you'd like to get notifications of new videos that I post, of course, you need to hit that bell icon. Last but not least, Mr. Mongoose. Mr. Mongoose will remain on watch for your safety. However, Mr. Mongoose will be taking some time to go out, explore, and enjoy the island as he used to prior to the eruption. And that will conclude the final edition of this report. I thank you for watching and all of y'all's support. Y'all have absolutely been wonderful, and I can't wait to start engaging with you in the new format and all the other wonderful content that I will be bringing you as time goes by. You have an absolutely amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. This has been the final edition of the Kilauea Eruption and Leilani Estates update for December 5th, 2018.